All right, here we go. Consequence. Welcome back to Vlad TV.
Well, Vlad got me to come back. Back in the courtroom. Let's do it. What's up? What we doing, Vlad?
Back in the courtroom. Back in the courtroom. I like that.
What's good?
Well, we've done other interviews in the past, but I really want to get your whole story this time because you were part of so many important movements in hip hop that I just want to get into all that and lead into what's happening with you right now.
Okay, that's cool.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's start in the very beginning. You grew up in Queens.
Queens get the money.
Okay. And what was Queens like in the 80s and 90s?
Definitely New York was a different place than it is now. Back in the 80s and the 90s, the music business was completely different and society was completely different. If we're talking about the 80s and 90s in New York, we're talking about the height of the crack epidemic. We're talking about the emergence of hip hop and hip hop not being a staple that it is today. So we're talking about the fragileness of the art form, and the question of its shelf life. So it's a completely different landscape than what we're doing in 2023.
Well, you yourself, you grew up in somewhat of a middle class neighborhood, right?
I would say lower middle class, lower income for some families, depends. A couple people well-to-do. See, my neighborhood is I'm from Linda Boulevard, which is a part of St. Albans. And St. Albans has a very diverse history because in one breath, you may have families that were on food stamps back then, and then in another breath, James Brown lived there. And obviously, Tribe Called Quest is from St. Albans. LL Cool J is from St. Albans. Run DMC are from the neighboring Hollis. The Lost Boys aren't too far away as well. So it was a very, like I said, it was diverse. There was diversity within what black and brown people were doing at that time.
You yourself, were you a generally good kid, or were you getting in some trouble as a kid?
I want to say I have balance. I want to say I wasn't a troublemaker, but I wasn't it's with me, like I definitely was smart. And I think one thing about me that a lot of people don't know is that I lived in San Diego for a portion of my childhood. I was my dad was stationed in San Diego. He was in the military, and I was born in New York. And my dad moved to San Diego because of him being in the Navy, and my sister was born in San Diego. So I spent a good portion of time there. So when my parents split, we moved. My mom took me and my sister. Her parents are from Harlem and bought a house. My grandfather used to run numbers, so he wound up buying a house in St. Albans. And so we when my mom split from my dad, she went to her parents' house, so we stayed there. And so there was a little bit of an adjustment period for me in that sense, because I was on a different type of time coming from San Diego and then readjusting to now being going into my early adolescent years back in New York. And so I think it's some breath, there's with that adjustment period, is like you connecting with people. And, for me, because I was always smart, I actually had to dumb it down a little bit to fit in, you know what I mean? Because I didn't want the nerd stigma or any of that. And like I said, in my household, there was an element of the streets. My grandfather's a number runner. And, my family had a reputation in the streets. And so you start trying to figure out the puzzle. you know, like I said, my dad's a military man, so, you know, the goal to please my father and my mom when they together is intelligence, the straight A's and things of that nature. The goal in my grandfather's house was to get money. And so you become a product of your environment.
I think you said in one of your interviews that like you were going to school every day, but sometimes you'd have like crack or weed in your sock. Right.
Yeah, like I said, you become a product of your environment. So, and in that situation, my mom has 10 siblings. It's 11. My grandparents had 11 children. So even when I made Uncle Raheem on Don't Quit Your Day Job, Uncle Raheem is a collage or a Voltron of my 8 uncles. A couple of my uncles robbed. I mean, I can say now they were bank robbers. And they all had a street element with them. And so they told me these things as a survival tactic. I'm one that, you know, they have a lot of nephews, but, you know, because it's 8 boys and 3 girls, they're protective of their sister's sons. And so they taught me a lot of things that eventually I used as survival mechanisms in the street.
I mean, dibble-dallying in that, did you ever get caught up in anything bad? Or is it just, I'm just going to make a little bit extra money and just get out of it as soon as I can?
I mean, in hindsight, 2023, selling crack is bad.
Right.
It's not a good deed. You know, carrying, you know, having drugs on you and all those things, I would... See, for me, they weren't bad. When I think of it now, and I put, you know, with those things, and some things I'm going to speak on, but because I am in Vlad's courtroom, I am going to plead the fifth on a few things, okay? So let's be, just let's that as a prerequisite moving forward. But in a non-incriminating way, I would say some of those things were bad looking back at them in hindsight.
Fair enough. So when you were 12, your grandmother died.
Correct.
And I guess to try to deal with the grief of that loss, you started a rhyme?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the saddest day. Probably my grandmother's funeral was the saddest day of my childhood, easy. And one of the saddest days of my life. She was the matriarch of the family. She's the one, like I said, my grandfather was hustling the street. She was his girl. You know what I'm saying? That was his girl. That was his wife. She gave him 11 kids. She put up with all that came with being with a man in the streets. So, and she was the leader of the family. She was the glue. She's the one who would initiate the barbecues and the bus trips. We was doing a lot at that time because, like I said, my grandpa was getting street money, so we living above the average means of the communities. So we got the bus pulling up, carry 100 people. We going to Bear Mountain and we going to South Carolina for the family reunion. So they was doing things that weren't customary because of the situation in the household. You know, and another thing was like they were flying me and my sister from California to New York, and we were chaperoned by a stewardess. So, you know, customarily kids would fly, you know, they accompanied by an adult. We would literally put in first class, first seats in the front, assigned a person that made sure that we were good the whole flight. And when we land, it's almost like flying a key in. And then somebody pick us up from the airport, and you know we would do that. So like I said, and I always promised her that I would carry on the lifestyle and the traditions that she had set forth and instilled in me, you know, especially in me and my sister and and my cousins that live with me, DeVal and Shatima and Tiffany. So, yeah, when she passed away. She died of leukemia. My cousin DeVal at the time had contracted meningitis, and that's how we found out. Nobody knew she was sick. She was one of those. She was grandma. You know what I mean? She was like, strong, and maybe almost too strong for her own good as far as being able to detect when something was wrong. She just carried everything. Her name was Carrie, ironically, and she carried us, And so when she died, a few months prior to that, had a friend of mine named Ike, who brother Lamont was killed, and Lamont used to rhyme. And the way that Ike coped with because him and Ike had a lot of siblings as well. I don't remember exactly how many, but he probably had like at least. He's definitely got like 5 sisters, and like 4 brothers. It's a bunch of them, the Knowles family. And so Lamont got killed, in a dead end. He was pumping. Well, he was hustling or trapping, or we would say pumping back then. He was pumping, and one thing led to another. He got into a situation and unfortunately, he was murdered. And so I saw Ike. Me and Ike used to dance. We used to dance battle. That's, that was a thing back then. And so he pivoted into rhyming to keep Lamar memory alive. And so when my grandmother died, I basically took that approach that he inspired me to use and just started writing. And that's how it started.
Okay, and were you named Consequence in the beginning?
No, but I'm in the court of Vlad. I'm in Vladimir's courtroom, and I'm not gonna say the name. But let's just say that and I don't even think a lot of people know it, but it took a couple swings at the bat before I got the Consequence. Yeah, it took a couple swings, but how I got the Consequence was I had the first name, and it was like the equivalent of DJ Envy's DJ Shrimp. So I was like, nah, DJ Shrimp won't work. You know what I mean? And I just the more I got into the writing, the broader my imagination it got, and so I just started feeling like the word. I started thinking of it, and I actually started looking. I was like, yo, what should be my name? What feels like what I'm saying? And I felt like I stumbled across the word consequence, and I looked in the dictionary, and it meant the result of actions or occurrences. And I felt like what I was saying, my raps were a consequence of the pain I was feeling because of my grandmother, and the consequence of the things that I was seeing at home, and the consequence of my mother and father divorcing. And it was a way. It was the consequence is the therapy for my pain.
Got it. Yeah, it's an ill name. I always wondered what it meant.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started rhyming in 1989, and then in 1990, A Tribe Called Quest released their first album, People's Instinctive Travels and the Passive Rhythm.
Right.
And Q-Tip is your cousin.
Right.
So when that first album came out, were you and Q-Tip close at all or no?
Not in regard to rapping, because of the fact that he's 5 years older than me, so he was actually peers with my cousin DeVal that I just spoke about, who had meningitis. So their relationship was like that, so to speak. And so I was running around with Q-Tip, and I didn't really on that level connect until a little later on. But so, and you know, even with his journey started with him in high school and going to Mary Bertram and developing a lot in that time period. So he's, you know, when I'm first starting to jump off, I want to say he may have had Benita Applebum by that point, or a little earlier than that.
Well, right, because that first album, you know, People's Instinctive Travels, ends up going gold. Can I Kick It was one of the big singles, and Benita Applebum was the other big single.
Yeah, still a big record. It's just funny. I just seen it in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle trailer.
Okay, and then that next year in 91, you're 14 years old, and Tribe comes out with the Low End Theory. And that had Scenario, Check the Rhyme, and that album goes platinum.
Right.
So now, like, Tribe is established as a platinum-selling hip-hop act.
Correct.
They're cemented in hip-hop at this point.
Correct.
So we fast forward a couple of years to 1993, and you, I guess, you know, right around that time, 93, 94, I guess you're planning on going to college, and you get accepted to St. John's University?
I
may be jumping around a little bit.
You're jumping a little bit. So,
yeah.
Because actually, this is the 30th anniversary of the Chase Part 2, which is the first thing I ever did.
Right. I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So So if you backtrack a little bit to 91, 92, and you speaking about Low End Theory, so obviously there's a shift in the dynamic of Tribe, where it's the first album, the wave is more in line with the native tongues at that time, which is a derivative, and once again, and also their heavy representation. There's a heavy representation of the Zulu Nation in the aesthetic of a tribe called Quest. Now, when you turn the corner to Low End Theory, that aesthetic starts to take a back seat to them being from Queens. The aesthetic of the Zulu Nation is a Bronx thing. Now, we know that the Jungle Brothers are from the Bronx. The Zulu Nation members are from the Bronx, which is all derivative of African Bambaataa. So they go through that chamber first, for better, for worse. Now, by the time they get to Low End, and there's an emergence of Phife, it's more start to move in more of a definitely. There's mention of Linda Boulevard and 192, and that's where I start to kind of get into the picture, and there's a process with that, and then so by the time we get to 93. Then I arrive on the Chase Part 2. And that's on the B-side of a world tour with the upcoming release of Midnight Marauders.
Right. And Midnight Marauders, that's my favorite Tribe album, period. When that came out, I felt like they finally were really in their bag, right. Completely. I listened to that album to death, just right. To death. Award Tour was the first single, like you mentioned. Rest in peace, Trugoy. Huge loss that just happened.
Definitely.
From De La Soul. He does the hook on that song.
Right.
The album goes platinum again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on the Chase Part 2. Where exactly are you on that song?
Well, I'm on the B-side of the Award Tour single.
Okay, got it.
Which is probably the only time I made a placement mistake in my career. Because I could have been on the album version, but I thought it would be a better idea for me as an individual, because the award tour was coming out first, to be heard on the B-side, which I don't, which it's not really a placement mistake. I just, in terms of publishing, it was. But in terms of, and I'm going on to become a songwriter and live, and that be a very lucrative part of my revenues. So, but from a creative and an aesthetic and just a starting point, I do love that the fact that it was like, oh, who's this guy on the B-side of their first single? And, the record went on to be played on the radio. I think at the time it was 98.7 Kiss. And, so that was the baby steps, or the initial stages of me coming into the fold of Tribe as an MC.
Okay, so you show up on the B-side. It doesn't show up on the album, like you said, but you have a song with Tribe Called Quest.
Right.
So after Midnight Marauders gets completed, things start to kind of move around in Tribe. So
Right.
Phife Dawg ends up moving to Atlanta.
Before you do that, we can't overlook the fact that Jerobi left the group.
Okay.
Right? So the difference between between Peoples and Low End is it goes from 4 to 3, right? So we go from 4 to 3, and then when I come around, it goes to 4. So that's a story within itself. So before Phife moves to Georgia, we can't skip over the fact that Jerobi left the group, because Jerobi and Phife are best friends.
Okay.
Right? So now we're starting to see we're starting to see what success is bringing about from a character standpoint. And it's not easy, especially, like I said, at that time. If we go back we got to understand that you're saying at that particular moment, coming with this starting in the inception of the inception of a tribe is in the midst of the crack epidemic, right? The 1989, at the same time, the Central Park Five were picked up. So it's a completely different time period. So four young men to be, and now obviously, like I said, those four are a tribe. You have to, they have a collective going on also when they creatively vibe with Jungle Brothers and they creatively vibe with De La Soul. And basically revolutionized the way that street kids approached the music business because of success, right? And even to this day, the ramifications of those sacrifices we're seeing on Front Street. We saw De La Soul literally have to campaign and turn and make every political statement to retrieve what was taken from them, And so there are numerous situations that are occurring all at once. So it's, for me, I can't just fly over. We go from, we go from People's Low End to Midnight to me, and there's no without detail. So
right.
So like I said, even Phife moving to Georgia is a reactionary scenario to the success and and the adversity that comes with their position. These are first of their kind. Prior to that, we can name almost everyone who crossed over, right? We can name Run DMC. We can say Houdini had hits. We could say L was the first solo. We could say the Beastie Boys were the first white to hit it. We could say we know, if you're at a certain age group, we know who the pioneers of certain things were, and the Native Tongues were pioneers in the aspect of taking non-traditional. Because when I say non-traditional, I would say because the customary rap hero at that time was, say, Rakim or Slick Rick or Kane, right? These guys didn't have gold. These guys they were like descendants of Planet Rock, so to speak. Like, if you look at early Tribe, Q-Tip is dressed like African Bambaataa at shows. More so than even De La. De La had, De La so more dressed like kind of what was going on in like Red Parrot, and if you go to certain clubs in New York you go to certain areas where they were, like back then it was like dressed like Gap shirt, rayon, you know what I'm saying? The slacks and maybe might hit it with some Clarks. You know what I mean? But have an African medallion. That was, and a high low was what, like they went to New Tribe and got a cut. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, well, in the Jungle Brothers, they dressed how they dressed. And I think Tribe, especially in particular Q-Tip, he was more tapped into what the Zulu Nation was aesthetically, and brought that to the table. And then there's a shift. And if you notice also, that's really not Phife thing, and so Phife moving to Georgia is, that's a consequence of the fame.
Right. So Phife moves to Georgia and Q-Tip becomes Muslim around this time.
Around the time of Beats, Rhymes, and Life, not Midnight Marauders.
Well, after Midnight Marauders.
Right.
Beats, Rhymes, and Life. That's what I'm saying. Like after Midnight Marauders. And J Dilla ends up joining the production team, the Ummah.
Right. So now so we clear, we on album cycle 4. Right. Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
This is after Midnight Marauders, gearing up to
success. Right.
Beat, Rhymes, and Life. And like I said, a bunch of stuff changes.
Yes.
During this time. So then in 1996, Beats, Rhymes, and Life comes out. You're 19 years old.
Right.
And you show up on 6 songs on that album?
8.
8?
8. Yeah.
Okay, you're on Phony Rappers, Motivators, Mind Power, Wordplay, Stressed Out, and I don't know the other ones.
So let me kick it to you. Phony Rappers, Motivators, Mind Power, The Jam, Wordplay, Baby Fight's Return, Stressed Out, Crew. Yeah, that's 8.
There you go. Okay, so I missed 2. Got it. So you're all over this album. The album debuts number 1 on the Billboard 200.
Right.
And ends up going platinum.
Right.
How does it feel to be a 19-year-old kid? You had an appearance on a non-album cut, but now you're like on half the album. And you're still a teenager. How does it feel to be on that level?
It's one of the most interesting things that even from the outside looking in, I've ever seen. Because it should feel like you conquered the world. But because I walked into a situation that I wasn't completely aware of, it took away some of the celebratory aspect of the success. I didn't know that there was a problem in the group at that time. I'm 19. And so when the album is received, That's the stat. Those are the stats that should be the only thing that matters, what you just said. Instead, I heard, oh, he's the reason they don't have chemistry anymore. I'm the reason they don't have chemistry anymore. Because, see, the problem for me was that I had so much abundance because I'm young, right? I'm dealing with, and at that particular time, like I said, it's really telling that we started the interview the way we started, with the tone being set of the 80s and the 90s, because we don't, at that particular time, we don't have forward thinking and foresight. So at that particular time, the members of the tribe were 25, but it had seemed like they were legends by Beach Rhymes and Life. Like, it seemed like they were legends. And really, they had only been actively recording under contract for maybe, let's say, what? It was 89, 96, 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. Which, if you think about it now, that's, that's, for some people, that's the start of a career. You know what I'm saying? Depending on the trek and the travels. And so the thing is, but so when by the time there's Beach Rhymes and Life, they're almost winding down. Like, all right, well, and so for me, it was really tricky, and it was really, no pun intended, but I was, at times I was stressed out because I was the only one celebrating. In my heart and in my head, like, I did it. Stressed Out, because 12,000 spins. Stressed Out was on the radio so much, I'd be in a crib and have to turn it down to have a conversation. It was on the radio that much. And that was my baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, that came about from me freestyling. I've said it before, me freestyling with Tip, Busta, and Spliff. And literally, it went from a freestyle to me and Tip deciding to do it. Tip tweaking or paraphrasing. That's how we got to it being actually Stressed Out. And at one point, TLC wanting the record for themselves, and Ali working with Phife at the time when she was with Biggie and wound up being pregnant, and she's in the video pregnant with CJ. All these things happen, and it's probably one of the most amazing. It should be the most amazing time of my life, and because of the group turmoil, it took a little bit away from it. It's something I've had to reconcile with.
Well, Phife Dawg, he actually spoke about this era in Tribe Called Quest. He said that right around this time, he started to lose interest in the group. He said, I really felt like with Midnight Marauders, I came into my own. By the time when Beats, Rhymes, and Life came out, I started feeling like I didn't fit in anymore. Q-Tip and Ali had converted to Islam, and I didn't. Music felt like a job, and I was just doing it to pay the bills. I never wanted my music to feel just to be like a job. They would schedule studio time at the last minute. I'd catch a plane from Atlanta to be in New York. When I got to the studio, no one would be there. Then they would cancel the session without telling me. It seems like the management were concerned with other folks and not me. So it seems like around that time, Phife kind of wasn't really gelling as well.
I mean, well, yeah, definitely. And the thing about that time period is that Phife and I actually wound up having a relationship. And I know for a fact that, a issue was me joining the group. And I've always said, like, me, I can understand, definitely as a grown man now, like, I can totally understand how that could make him feel. Because, if I had done what he had done, I would be territorial as well, definitely as far as decision making is concerned. And I think he and I wound up figuring things out once we just had the real conversations that we needed to have one up, right? Because me joining Tribe was a Q-Tip decision and not a group decision. You know, obviously, like I said, there's the family element. There's the element of me being a high draft pick, if not the number one draft pick in the hood at the time. You know, it wasn't just nepotism. I've said it, you know, like I've had a legendary cipher where the word got back, and I actually had a deal on the table with Puff. At least not. It never got the paperwork because Q-Tip intercepted it and just said, "Yo, I'm putting you in the group. I see you got a deal. Good enough for me. Let's go." Right. So, but I did get a verbal interest from Puff during the Big and Mac campaign that after Q-Tip had a meeting with him and played him this song called "Living It Up" that me and him did, Puff wanted to pick up the project. So Q-Tip and I know that, but I don't know how much of that. I probably will never know unless I just flat out ask him. I just don't know what he divulged to them as far as the setting, the things that led to it. I think he obviously had a word with them and said, "Yo, son is not he nice. He watch how he go, boom, 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 boom." And I did, and I lived up to what he said. So it couldn't be an argument, but then at the same time, it still doesn't stop it from feeling like an imposition. You know what I'm saying? Like feeling like I'm imposing. And that's fair. That's more than fair.
Well, when you look at what's happening in 1996, you know, Tupac gets out of prison, he drops Hit 'Em Up, the whole East Coast, West Coast war kind of sets off, and then Tupac gets killed in Vegas.
Right.
Later that year. And I guess there was a situation at the Def Jam holiday party that year.
Right.
That you were at.
Right.
When Ghostface Killer and Wishbone, who was, you know, signed to Eazy-E, ran into each other.
Right. Right.
And
can I play? It's funny. Can I play you something that I just wrote? This would be like a Black Courtroom exclusive. This is like this is Exhibit A.
Exhibit A. Let's go.
Hold on 1 second. Let me fast. So this is on the upcoming Bloodstained 3. I failed to mention that Bloodstained 3 is Ghostface, Armani Caesar, Jim Jones, and 38 Special with myself.
1, 2. You already know what's up. I got the legend with me, Ghostface. Yeah, yo, elegance. Water on top of water. Drip like tears running off of your daughter. Diamonds is husky, bulldog growling with fangs. Plus I'm a shooter like I'm out of Kentucky.
Definitely, yeah. Ghost had made the mistake of assuming that the Bone Thugs was actually from LA and not from Cleveland because of the association with Eazy-E. And yeah, it was up. That was at the Mirage.
Yeah, I guess he tried to throw a champagne bottle at Wishbone, and he ends up like ducking, and then your man gets hit in the face with a champagne bottle.
100%.
But I think the craziest part of the story, though, is when I guess you guys came outside and Ghostface was putting on like a ninja outfit.
Yeah. He had on a Haley Hansen rain suit, and he had a ninja mask on, like a fencing mask, but it looked like a ninja mask. That shit was so crazy. I was like, yo, it's like a video shoot. It's just I never seen no shit like that in my life. Shout out to Ghost, and he killed the Bloodstained 3 joint. We actually had a conversation about that. It's New York was that time period. At the same time the Purple Tape was out, and that's 96.
Right.
So we were actually on a show tour with the Wu and Keith Murray and Def Squad, Onyx. Yeah, we had a time with them. That shit was crazy.
Okay, so then next year in 97, you put out an EP, which had like rock and roll on it.
I didn't put
Queens
out.
Get the Money.
I didn't put
No?
out anything.
Okay, but you had songs that
I
were
had
kind
songs that got sold to Germany.
of okay. I know this game. Yeah,
Right. This the DJ Black game back in the day shit.
back in the day, right?
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So I had some shit that got pressed up. I had some shit that got pressed up. I'm not. Did I get? I don't. It got pressed up. I know somebody. You know what I mean? Because I opted to ask for a release from Elektra. I had finished the album. J Dilla did 7 joints on it. Me and J Dilla did a joint together that had SWV on it. I had a joint with Havoc that you might have heard it. I think it says it's called The Persian Gulf, but it's labeled on YouTube as Queens Get the Money.
Right.
And I had a joint with Busta called Armani Frames, and like you said, Let's Rock and Roll leaked, and The Consequences leaked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was frustrating. That's frustrating that that's labeled as an EP because that was supposed to be my debut album.
Got it.
And
Got it.
you know, it's been a blessing in one sense that not coming out probably is what secured my future inevitably because of the fact that but the detriment of that scenario is that I've always had to work backwards, right? I've always been playing catch up, no matter what. Because if that would have took off and it got done right, that changes history. I don't meet Kanye West in the same position if that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably, if that comes out and is successful, I'm in a different position when it comes to tribe and the native tongues, right? But, you know, in my faith, because I'm actually Muslim as well, there's a thing called martial law, which is the will of, that is the will of Allah. That is the will, that is the way that God wanted it, you know, and I accept it. But it is frustrating. It is a point of frustration for just due to the fact that, you know, if you ever had to deal with something that you always wonder what it could have been, it's almost like the regret. It's almost like the regret of a miscarriage, so to speak. Creatively, I'm obviously not comparing that to a human loss, but the development that went into what I was doing at that time felt like that I lost something that was a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And every child is a part of the parent, you know? And so I'll never know. I don't get to celebrate 25 years of that child. I get to, you know, ironically, yesterday was the anniversary of Don't Quit Your Day Job. And it just turned 16. So I was able to say, Sweet 16, the 16th anniversary of Don't Quit Your Day Job. And the reflection of that is just like, that's the equivalent of almost an adult. That's time. That time is the equivalent of a 16-year-old who would be in high school right now. So at least I have that to show for that if I measure time, right? I can, you know, and now in reflection, you know, Day Job had a slow start. Now, you know, it's hailed as a classic and people love it for the good, the bad, and the ugly, even though at the time, Yo Waddy put the good, the bad, and the ugly on it, but now that's the home of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? That's the home of the Grammy family. That's the home of Uncle Raheem. It's the home of all this creativity. And my first home that I built with my bare hands as a kid got torched to the ground. And so, like, I have a little bit of vengeance in my heart, and I've had it for years. And so every time when you see me kind of go to that space, I channel that. That's why I never lose, because I channel that. I channel that, and I channel the fact that maybe that guy couldn't do nothing about it, but that this guy can.
Well, around that time, this is 97, Q-Tip had made a beat for Biggie's second album. And I guess Biggie heard it and liked it, but the album was pretty much complete at that time.
I think Dilla made that beat.
Oh, Dilla made the beat?
You talking about diamonds in the back, sun rooftop, dipping in mean with the gangster lean, ooh wee, you see the ugliest, Brooklyn Loch Ness. That's J Dilla did that.
Well, it's the beat that ended up being called The Love on the next album.
You know what? I'm sorry, I misspoke. That beat, that rhyme I'm saying was supposed to go on Busta's album.
Okay.
So you're right. Big Q-Tip and Biggie actually had met up at a party, and Biggie said to Q-Tip that he wanted to move in the direction of what he wanted to move the music in a different in a tribe direction. He wanted to get in that lane. So you're actually right. The record I'm speaking about, Dilla did, was for the Buster album that was supposed to have Biggie, Nas, and Method Man on it. And that was going to be the first time that he spoke about Tupac. Got
it. Okay, so that song ends up not making it on Biggie's album. Biggie gets killed, unfortunately. Rest in peace.
Yeah, Q-Tip called me when Biggie got killed. I actually just said it in a rap too. But yeah, Q-Tip called me crying when Biggie got killed.
Yeah, man. That was a loss.
Yeah.
That was a loss.
Yeah.
Life After Death comes out, ends up being a huge album. You know, unfortunately, Biggie's not around to actually experience it. And then after that, I guess the Love Movement recording starts.
Right.
But in 1998, Q-Tip's house ends up getting burnt up in a fire.
Yeah, the house was on fire.
And he ends up losing a computer with a bunch of Tribe songs on there and his entire record collection.
And that baby I just told you about.
Yeah, the stuff that he was working on with you.
Yeah, my baby died in that fire.
Aha. Got it. So now they kind of have to rebuild and kind of redo this album. Now, right before, I think a month before the Love Movement was released, the group announced that this is going to be the final Tribe Called Quest album.
Right.
Are you still with the group at this point?
No, I walked away.
You walked away. Right. Because then the Love Movement comes out.
I could have, but why would I have? I didn't want to be a sidekick. I didn't sign on for that. I rap at a very high level. And I've rapped at a very high level for a long time. And so that skill set won't allow for positioning. Like, I won't allow you to position me because you have the position as if you rap better than me. I can't do that. That's not how I'm built. And I wasn't raised to concede by default. So like, I wasn't raised to let someone think they winning. Like, you gotta understand something about life. There's times when people let others win for the sake of the game itself. Because when you know certain personalities, you know that we won't even have a game. They're gonna take their ball and go home if they don't feel like they could score too. Sometimes when someone owns the ball, if you want to just play ball and you in the park, but you can't afford a basketball, then you might have to not play hard, play D as hard so that it stays enjoyable. Right? So the position of an owner is different, but you got to get to that point. And so what I began to understand is that without me being an owner, then I'm subject to either limited playing time or concession of my own skill set so that for the sake of the game continue. And so I chose to say, I'm gonna bet on me. And that's what I did. And it was not easy to walk away from Tribe. You know, it's not easy to walk away from a clout empire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And say, you know what? I got this much faith in me that I'm gonna do it. You know, because then you encounter politics. Why are you not with them? Or they're not gonna co-sign this anymore. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the Love Movement comes out. You're not on it. Debuts at number 3. It goes gold. Most people would say it's not their favorite Tribe album. You know, when you look at the whole catalog. As you know, especially, you know, I could say that in terms of being a fan from, you know, the first Tribe album and as well as all the guest appearances and everything else like that.
Right.
And we talked about this on one of our old interviews. Now you're out of the group, you don't have a record deal, and you have to fend for yourself, and you ended up as a security guard to try to make ends meet.
Right.
And there was that one day which you talked about, you know, you rapped about later on Kanye's Spaceship record, where you're a security guard and some dude walks in was like, man, you look kind of familiar. Didn't I see you in that Busta Rhymes music video?
Right. To that extent, well, basically it was a coworker who, it was during the holidays, and MTV at that time, when, you know, this was TV was the main vehicle, was running like the top 100 rap videos of all time, and Wu-Ha was in it, and henceforth he was like, yo, Ben knew you look like the kid who was in that old Busta Rhymes video the other night. Didn't I see you? And that's how the Spaceship line came about. I literally just took that and transcribed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if we fast forward a couple of years to 2003, you're actually working with Jay-Z as a writer.
To what? Say that. What years you said?
2003. Jay-Z is working on the Black album.
Right.
And from what I read, you actually helped write the song Encore.
Right. Well, that's through the connect. You know what I'm saying? Kanye's working with Jay-Z. Kanye calls me while I'm at a barbecue in Brooklyn, like, yo, I need your help to flip this chorus. He and I were just together. This was Labor Day weekend. He and I, and it's so ironic that that happened then. At the same time, it's a spooky level occurrence, because I was with, before I left to come back to New York, I was in LA with Kanye. We had worked with Eve. We had went record shopping at Amoeba, and I told him to buy the reggae records. I told him to buy the reggae record that had Lucifer on it. I said, you catch that shit. I know that shit is ill. He's from Chicago. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. I know all them shits. You know what I'm saying? So he bought it. He caught the Lucifer on that, right? Also this week, this is the week I got my first Rolex. He gave me my first Rolex. You know, we was starting to really, you know, cook it. I think he had ironically did a record for the Clips then that didn't wind up getting cleared. It was a dope beat too. I remember the sample was fire on that shit. So we had a great 2 weeks. Shout out to my man KB. We ran around. We went Adidas shopping, all that. We tore LA up. You know what I'm saying? We had a great time. And I'm gonna keep it real. First, this same trip, I got my first Louis Vuittons and my first Rolex. You know what I mean? And I could feel joy. I could celebrate this time. You dig? Like, and that's coming from the guy who was doing security when Hype Williams and June Ambrose walked in. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because at the same time, my link still to the tribe was my man Shaka. Shaka was managing Q-Tip, and he had got Mos Def a deal at MCA. And this was, me and Shaka was like this, right? And Shaka and Q-Tip's relationship, he managed Q-Tip during the Amplified album run with Vibrant Thing and Breathe and Stop. They had a great run. Shaka got caught up in Atlanta and was murdered. I found out Shaka was murdered when I got back from the trip with Kanye, right? And so it was just really, as I said, it was spooky level because it literally was like the close of one chapter or the ending of one book and the opening of the opening chapter to my new life. So then at the same time, I'm dealing with the Shaka scenario because I'm helping his mom's with his funeral because he's a Muslim and he had to have a janazah. And then Ye hit me like, yo, I got this J shit, yo. Yeah, we just went shopping. We just tore it up. So it's like, yo, I need you. All right, cool. So then we wound up, I was on the phone with him and we wound up cooking Encore. We cooked the chorus to Encore. We did it fast. I was inspired by it at that point. You know what I mean? I had really got the fire back lit. You know what I mean? Because it was, nobody wants to feel like they're accomplishing things and go unrewarded. And because Kanye was my peer, even though he was out in front of me financially, and I had catching up to do in life just for what he understood that. And so we still got to enjoy it together. You know what I'm saying? And, that's why, our run and our relationship went so long because, I'm a person of integrity and principle and good, bad, or indifferent. You gotta cherish the people who help change your life and help motivate you to be more. It's not just about the money. It's just about, you could even with yourself, like I've literally watched you. I remember when you was first on and we was arguing about me being on Vlad, right? Because it was like, and I didn't get it at first, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I'm in my world, but I'm not understanding like, yo, this shit mean everything to you. You trying to build to what you see, to your vision, and that's the thing about being a visionary when somebody so when I have a person like Kanye, that's a like-minded visionary. Regardless of our situation, we got a vision. So it's like when your situation was like, maybe at first I didn't see it. And then I started to, as time went on, I started to see like, all right, this is what Vlad was trying to do. You know what I'm saying? And I got to respect it. You know what I'm saying? 100%. Because I seen it from the door. I might not have seen what the end game was, but I actually could say like, I actually knew Vlad before this. And so he was transitioning and he saw what he saw. And he just needed people to see what he was seeing. You understand? And that's important. Yep. For me, that's really important.
Right. Well, you helped do the song Encore. Kanye produced it. The Black Album goes triple platinum. It was actually his biggest selling album of the 2000s.
Yo, look. I'm gonna stop you real quick. You saying I'm a part of a lot of. I'm hearing a lot of numbers. I ain't, but continue.
Right. And also that song ends up getting remixed on the Linkin Park mashup album.
Mm-hmm.
So this song gets a lot of run.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of run. And then in 2004,
before that, because I do want to try to retain as much chronological order as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, because ironically, it's the anniversary for the 20-year anniversary of the La Bella Mafia. So the first I Trust Consequence placement Came Back for You on Lil' Kim's album.
Okay.
So he had made the beat. I heard it. I loved it. And we went to the studio with Kim and I wrote a joint for her. She didn't want me to ghostwrite for her, but she loved the hook and she kept the chorus and she just reworded it a little bit, but she kept the, and I came back for you. That was all me. I was wiggling on that shit. You know what I'm saying? And that was the first, like, Ye did the beat, Cons come with the chorus scenario. You know what I mean? And so when he got to the J shit, that's a, you know, and that gives a trust. We building trust. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and I've always said this about me and Ye, it's like, creatively, he felt like he could trust me and I could trust him that, like, I'm not gonna stay in this same position that I'm in. I'm not, you know, it's really, at that time, it's extremely nerve-wracking to deal with people, you know, because if I'm dealing with tribe and this is my family, but I wind up doing security, I start to lose trust in people, you know, because it's just, how can I trust, you know, in a situation where you just said it yourself, that the stat is that album went platinum, it's #1 the first week it come out. Any rational person would say, and I wound up working 2 years later? Like, you gotta say something went wrong. Or something was wrong from the start and I just didn't know it. You know, like, this the 50th year of hip hop, right? And this is my 30th year as a professional, because The Chase came out in October of 1993. So I've had 30 years to absorb. So my POV of things is light years ahead of when I was a up and coming young gunner. You know what I mean? So yeah. So to the point of the chronological order, the Little Kim record came, then we get to Encore, and as well as the other records that we have in the chamber and the mixtapes that we're doing, because once again, also, we have The Good, the Bad, and Ugly had started. And then even from Encore, we start it's not long before we get to Through the Wire.
Right. Well, because that next year in 2004, Kanye drops College Dropout.
I mean, before we get to the drop, we gotta get to how we got the pot even boiling. That was my problem with the documentary. Because the thing is this, like, as an African American who is in the midst of American history and even in my history of my family and things that my son will see later, and hopefully his children will see, God willing, I want to make sure that it's all accounted for. You dig? If we gonna do this, you know what I mean? Otherwise, we could just talk about current events. But if we talk about my life and we gonna try to run it up, let's run it up. Let's do it right. If I'm coming to court, I'm the star witness. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Let's go. Let's go. No, you're right. I'm skipping certain songs and mixtapes and you know, projects with other artists.
They important though. They important because
I understand.
If we robbing a bank, we can't skip numbers on the dial, because we got to acknowledge how we got the safe open. The safe ain't just popped the fuck open. Right? No safe does. You know what I'm saying? Even the register. If the register don't just open, hey, maybe you shot the bitch in the head before you did it. You know, or you shot the bitch next to Vivica Fox, and set it off. Whatever you did, we gotta reenact. We in Vlad Court. We gotta reenact the crime. Right?
Got it. Okay.
So how we killed the game was this, Judge Vlad. What we did was, it was my first mixtape, right? So because I'm coming off of working in retail as a security guard, and then I can't stomach doing it anymore, right? Then I actually worked for my man, White Dog, and his father, PT's cleaning service, while me and Kanye figured it out. I couldn't stomach anymore, and I wound up actually staying with my man D Hugs, right? And his family, rest in peace to G Moore. Because I couldn't stomach having to do security and living with the memory of a Tribe Called Quest. I couldn't stomach it. I really couldn't. I've said the drop scenario in interviews and, you know, going through that and going through the chamber of working and going through the chamber of, even in my neighborhood, hosting the Mastermind mixtape and doing all those things with Ike Love and you know, even with my cousin DeVal and niggas encouraging me not to give up. When by the time Ye and I meet and we have our conversation about how we're gonna get to this shit, like I've always said, he unlocked something. And for me, I knew the only way for me to sustain would be for me to go independent then. You know, so my first mixtape was pressed up. I pressed it up in Queens. Started hitting, for those in New York who know, I was putting it in Fat Beats, Sandbox Automatic. I did all that. Rest in peace. I forgot her name. Smiley. Rest in peace to Smiley. She was copping heavy from me. I wound up with Sammy Needles in them, boxes of shit. You know what I'm saying? I literally was moving rap like weight, right? And that happened because I asked Kanye to lend me the money to do it, right? And we put The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on it, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, DJ Enough took it off our mixtapes, because then he put one out, Get Well Soon, because I started everything. This is how I even got to where I have 1 on 2 records now. Because literally at that point, I was my own publicist, I was my own distributor, I was my own radio person, all in one, right? And so every relationship that I figured that I could manipulate from the nightmare of a Tribe Called Quest, I did. And so I met Eric Parker, he plugged me with Bonsu, he plugged me with Jermaine. They still to this day have a grip on New York journalism, right? So then I got Off the Radar, I got Show and Prove and XXL. Kanye saw that, was like, nigga, I'm paying for this kind of shit, right? And I bound me and him together. But even at that time, motherfuckers was like, yo, you fuck with him, he could rap? You think he could rap? This is the thing, because the thing is this, I'm still Consequence, right? Nobody could take that from me. So I didn't leave off on a bad note. I left off for Stressed Out. Remember, I didn't put out a mixtape dissing Tribe. I never did that. And anything that I was doing, like even like with the Mastermind, it was great, right? It was great, but it didn't get to the industry. It was more like in the streets. It was like 50 was on it, and 50, you know, long story with that. But my point being that when Ye started seeing a hustle, it inspired him, and so now we are going to meetings and we doing everything, and then it starts building. It's like, yo, we're going to Rockaware. Niggas throwing box of clothes. Now it's like, oh, I can move around and shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't have any. I don't. You know, I got one fresh jacket back then. You know, I need to be able to look like it's serious shit. Serious shit. When I met Kanye, my Timbs was on a cup of lean, bro. You know what I'm saying? Shit, nigga was hit. I have no dirty A-Rex. I have no qualms about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I climbed out of the gutter. I literally did it. You know what I mean? And so I have no qualms about that guy because I love that guy. I love him. I love him to this day. I love that guy because that guy didn't fucking quit. He didn't run from none of this shit. He didn't set nobody up. He didn't do no bitch ass nigga shit to nobody. He got that shit out the fucking mud. Like I said, I'm carrying boxes on a fucking dollar van, going to fucking bag up CDs, right? So by the time we get to 2004, the groundswell is insane. It's due to all these things. And like I said, it inspired Kanye. He got Debo Springsteen, who I named Devo Springsteen, bagging up in the crib. We every spot we got CDs like Drama and Don Cannon apartment. All right? So literally, and they all get impressed because not only because of me, now Ye shit is kicking in with the office, with Rockefeller. You know what I mean? And so we just every day we making uncharted progress until we get to where Through the Wire literally went from an indie record to being number one. And Slow Jams being split between Def Jam and Atlantic and going number one at radio and number one at MTV. And that's how, and in addition to the placements, like You Don't Know My Name for Alicia Keys and Brown Sugar for Dante and a slew of other production credits and features that Kanye did. We just stirred the pot, and that's how, sir, that's how that crime was committed.
Right, because College Dropout comes out. You have the song Spaceship that you do with Kanye on that record. And you talk about the whole security guard story that we mentioned earlier. That song by itself has 70 million streams on Spotify right now.
We're talking a lot of numbers on here, Judge.
Yep. The album goes 4 times platinum. It wins the Grammy for Best Rap Album, but it was also nominated for the Album of the Year, which is, the big dog.
Big
dog Grammy.
Out the gate too. And so the thing is like, and we can see even in my career, right, where there's this pattern of excellence, where, I'm affiliated, associated with these, with this level of art that once it actually manifests fully and is fully able to be monetized, it takes off. It's world renowned. And that's and that's priceless.
Right. And then next year in 2005, Kanye drops Late Registration. And I remember on your Instagram, you actually posted the actual handwritten track list of that album.
Right.
You were on the song Gone with Kanye and Cameron.
Right.
Classic record. That album gets 8 Grammy nominations, once again, including Album of the Year, and it wins the Grammy once again for Best Rap Album, 2 years in a row now. And was it that same year that you actually signed to Good Music yourself?
That's correct.
Got it. So, you're now in the mix, 2 albums deep, in one of the biggest movements in hip hop.
Nah, but you're not branding this the correct way. You now did what some would have to view as almost impossible. You literally came back from obscurity and now have a hand in the hottest ticket in the music business.
Correct.
How do you think that makes other people feel, sir?
I don't know, jealous, proud. It depends on the.
I like jealous and proud. I like jealous and proud because I feel like jealous and proud equals. If you had to do a formula, I feel like jealous plus proud equals mixed emotions and is a formula for clout outrage, right? Because, and I say that because in one breath, anyone who knows you assume they could feel when you do something, right? You assume that they can, like, it's like for you, right? When you first hit, let's say when you got your first 100,000 subscribers, right? And what you do, that's a significant benchmark, right? You look at that and you say, all the times I struggled, all the interviews I had, all the times that I got it, or they didn't give it to me, or I argued, or this, whatever your rigmarole is to get there, you have to look at that and you have to take a deep breath and say, hey, you know, this is something that I can't overlook. Versus someone who looks at that and they look that over and they say, fuck Vlad. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the reality of the things that we deal with when it comes to this business and success and now at this point society itself. Because everybody, anybody can figure out the play to a degree, right? We all have platforms where that formula that I'm speaking of, even at that time, which is almost like thinking of it now, it's damn near prehistoric, but or before is BC, before clout, right? So now that we're dealing in clout, you know, the temperature is up.
Yep. Well, with all the success, the next year there was the tragedy when J Dilla dies.
Right.
Were you guys close leading up to this time?
The thing is, our travels took us in different directions when we first met. I used to have it's JD for me, right? I used to have JD on Linden with me. I used to have JD come on Linden Boulevard with me. He used to come to my crib. He would work out with me. We had Q-Tip crib. We opted not to go on the Smoking Grooves tour. The funny thing is this, like, I remember when I first heard Slum Village, I was like, wait, JD rap? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Because he was very quiet, very like almost like, I don't want to say mute, but he was like quiet. You know what I mean? And he laughed but he always be like, yo, dog, check this out. Like I have at least, not donuts, none of that. I got like at least 3 or 4. I think my mom has them, JD tapes. You know what I mean? And he just be hitting me with shit. And I was just like, I rapped on all that shit. Cause Tip played it for me when he first got the tape, when he was on tour. He came home, and that was one of the things also with the whole me not signing the Bad Boy. He was like, yo, I got this kid. Listen to this. I heard Stakes is High on a beat tape. You know what I mean? And Running. You know what I mean? I heard them shits on a beat tape. I was like, oh, he know how to do the drums, nigga. Shit, this shit is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And it just was like, he was just, and JD was kind of like me in the fact that he just came to the studio and always had some new shit. That's why he did many. That's why he did so many on Beach Round the Life.
Yeah, man, it's a loss. He was very, very dope at what he did, and he died way too young. Way too young.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, all things considering, the irony of life is I have lupus.
Right, we're going to talk about that as well.
And, I don't know what his regimen was. I don't know what his diet was. But I know that, in hindsight, maybe, martial law, what happens, and that's God's will that he's gone. Hopefully bless his soul, but lupus is something that you can manage.
Okay, and that next year in 2007, we had talked about this earlier, you dropped your debut album, Don't Quit Your Day Job. And those records that you were, had been floating around before were on this album, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Grammy Family record with Kanye and John Legend and DJ Khaled.
Right.
So now you actually have your first official album out. Right. It's on Good Music. It's on Columbia, right?
It's on Columbia and Red. It was distributed through Red.
Sony Red. Right, exactly.
Which was a mistake. I think it was a mistake. I mean, I can just call a spade a spade. It's a mistake. I mean, there was just a lot of things going on with the label, and Kanye was new to the CEO position, and God bless her soul, Miss West. Miss West behind the scenes, she was definitely making sure that I got my just due. Because for a minute I didn't think Deja was gonna come out, to be honest with you. Which to me is really it's a lot also. And I think different from the Tribe situation is that I was smarter by that time. And I did have a better, like I said, me and Kanye did have a better relationship than, from a peer standpoint, than obviously if it's a big cuz scenario with Q-Tip or a big bro scenario with Ali Shaheed Muhammad, you know what I mean? And so, I got the album out. I worked this shit to the bone. I did 8 videos for that shit. And eventually got another deal. It was just, I had the same product manager that Cam had smacked in the face. So that just go to show you what the fuck I was dealing with. Cam smacked this nigga. You know what I'm saying? And eventually me and him had got to a spot, but it's so funny because it's all about how much you believe in somebody. And it's also, it's clout. Clout is a motherfucker. Like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, you my product manager, but you want to be Beyonce product manager, right? So, or you in charge of the product management, and so you designate me, the homie over here who just started. Like, he ain't got no pull. He going in the office and getting told, nah, we ain't spending that. And that's the part, especially at that time. That's why, man, I be happy for young niggas that do this shit online. Everybody be talking that shit about young niggas. I be happy because they be like, yo, I'm so glad we got to the money and got past the fuck shit. And like guys like NBA Youngboy, man, I don't gotta answer to that shit, man. And that's how I'm living, because I lived this shit. You know what I'm saying? So, and I got to the bag. You dig? So I'm not out here like, damn, why did this person get approved for 15 and I didn't? Them days is definitely over. Nigga, I'm a completely different nigga in 2023. You know what I mean? And I played the game how I was supposed to play this shit. You dig? But back then, like I said, the same nigga Cam had the motherfucking damn near assault and then wound up going to Rockefeller. This nigga was in charge of the shit. So he acted funny with the bag. And they already had a situation with us, with the label, that didn't go, that wasn't received well. And so it just was like, it put me back in so when it came to my solo shit, it was like, damn, I'm in an uphill battle with this shit. And there was days I was in my car, it just nerved the fuck out. And I knew I had to do some wild shit. I leaked the Grammy family. You know what I'm saying? That's how I even got a release date.
Okay. Well, that same year, Kanye drops Graduation. Did you work on that album with him?
Yeah, I worked on Can't Tell Me Nothing. I worked on Champion. I worked on Good Life.
Got it. And then that next year, Kanye drops 808s and Heartbreaks.
Worked on that.
And you worked on that album as well. You were on Say You Will?
You wrote on Say You Will. I wrote on Paranoid. I wrote on RoboCop. And I wrote on Amazing.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. Okay. So that next year, 2009, there was the Kanye incident at the, I believe it was the MTV Awards with Taylor Swift,
right,
where he, I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce is the best artist of all time. And then there was kind of the fallout after that, where I guess Kanye kind of went into sort of a little bit more of a shell after that situation. And I think you had talked about how the two of you kind of stopped communicating as much after that. Is that accurate?
Well, shout out to the Hennessy.
Yeah.
Definitely shout out to the Hennessy.
Yeah. He had the bottle of Hennessy right there. Him and Amber Rose.
Shout out to the Hennessy. You know what I mean? Definitely shout out to Ballhead Fred. aka and Beezy.
I've never heard that name before, but I gotta
Shout
laugh
out
a
to
little bit.
Ballhead Fred. You know what I mean?
Ballhead Fred. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because you fast forward to 2011 and you leave good music on not the best terms.
Correct. Shout out to the Henny and Ballhead Fred. I mean it. I mean, just shout out to the Henny and definitely shout out to Ballhead Fred. I mean, look, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to resolve with certain things that happen. And I mean, at that time, I was signed to Motown. Sylvia Rowan had gave me a deal and gave it to me. And the premise was that Q-Tip and Kanye were going to be executive producers of the album. I put out the first single, Whatever You Want, was the #1 record in the. That's what. Now this is when you and I are linking too. By the way, that's when I'm in that building.
Yeah,
that's when I'm in the building.
Yeah, because Vlad TV was
upstairs,
kind of part of SRC
right.
in the Universal Building, and you and I started.
That's how we bumping. Yeah, that's how we bumping into each other.
We had a little. We even had a little situation in front of BB King's at one point.
Yeah. That's when my song was Your Goon.
Right.
That's when my song was Your Goon.
Yeah, we almost actually got into it.
I had my nigga lay with me, and it was like,
oh yeah, everyone was ready to go.
Yeah.
But luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and we worked it out. We became cool after. Here we are all these years later. But we were both younger, and like
I said, even in reflection, that situation at the time was due to the fact that you was starting what you was starting, and I was in the building, and like I said, my tunnel vision, and now this will give you clarity. This will give you a little clarity of why things was happening between me and you, right? So that situation, just to be 100% real, Kanye is a superstar. We just fresh off the Glow in the Dark tour, right? Whatever happened with Don't Quit Your Day Job, we reconciled that, right? So then I start Cons TV, if you remember. So Cons TV basically documents good music in our travels, right? So it's a hit online. Just like one of the first joints that, like I got, if you ever see Q-Tip doing a needle drop, that's Cons TV. If you ever see Pharrell imitating Busta Rhymes and why he wouldn't give Africa from Jungle Brothers dap, that's from Cons TV. If you ever see the first Louis Vuitton Dawn shoe premiered, that's on Cons TV. I had a lot of clutch moments. I even leaked the Lollipop remix with Lil Wayne and Kanye on my stream, right? So that was one of the keys to me getting the deal at Motown. Sylvia seen my online analytics back then and was like, oh, it's lit. You lit. You know what I'm saying? And I was just doing it. I was just really having fun with it. And I actually, obviously wanted to do another record. And the synergy of it was like, at one breath, because Tribe had got back together to do shows. So in one breath, people would see me. I'll be with Kanye in the studio or on tour, right? And in another breath, I was at Q-Tip crib and he'd be making a beat, right? So then I married those and was like, yo, let's do Cons TV the album, right? And I went and got the deal on my own. Nobody had to do nothing, right? I come to both of them. Yo, told Kanye at Saturday Night Live, yo, what up? I said, shit, nothing. I just signed a Motown. They just gave me a bag. What? Yeah, I got a deal. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I'm good. Right? So he was like, as a reward, this is why I'll tell you, he my man. He be in his bag, but he my man. Because he was like, yo, book studio tonight. Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? So we started working on the album. Now, real shit, like, it just, what Q-Tip had spoke to Sylvia and got me to check, but when it's time in the studio, it wasn't healthy, put it that way. You know what I'm saying? It didn't become a healthy situation. It came more of a, yo, we got to Whatever You Want, and we ain't had no Q-Tip records. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, It was time to pull the trigger, Sylvia. You know, anybody know Sylvia? Sylvia is not cutting no check and sitting there waiting for you to fucking have a baby. Nah. She cut the check. She want to put the shit out next week. Soon as the funds clear, nigga, let's hit the streets. You know what I'm saying? So she like, yo, I need a record. What's up? You know what I'm saying? Because I see all these numbers. I need to, you know, that the thing is like a lot of, this is a good jewel for a lot of artists, right? You don't want to be in a position, right, where you go to a label and they see you crushing shit, and then you get in the building, and then it turned into I need to take my time. That's not what attracted them to the deal in the first place. So same thing applied here. So then I had to deliver. And now I got to deliver in the midst of time passing. Now, Drake has started to creep up with the mixtape where he got the P code on. You know, this motherfuckers is in the game. So we put out Whatever You Want, and Whatever You Want. So the records that Kanye was featured on at the time was Whatever You Want, Make 'Em Say with Kid Cudi and Common, and Run This Town with obviously Rihanna and Jay-Z. My problem was, although I had been in the game for years, this was probably since stressed out as an individual, my first radio record. Well, I had Don't Forget 'Em, right? I did have Don't Forget 'Em. Don't Forget 'Em got added to 97. But I have a long, drawn-out history with radio, what I'm trying to say. So when the Taylor Swift debacle came about, there was like a slight shadow ban on Kanye, right? That was very offensive to quote-unquote middle America and a lot of the powers that be. They took the position that here's this black man, he's drunk, he got Bullhead Fred with him, and she got a snakeskin bodysuit with a big ass, and Taylor Swift looked like a nice, clean-cut white woman, dressed wholesome, and this nigga with a leather shirt on gonna come on stage and Debo her out her shit and tell Beyonce it should have been you. Right?
Yeah.
Ain't that what happened?
I mean, even Obama commented on it. I think he called Kanye a jackass for doing that.
Like I said, he got everything a wild nigga got that night. Which ain't even really, we seen various images of Kanye. But that night he was just, that's the only time I ever seen him really like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. He had a leather shirt on. You know what I mean? Shit was cut. Tim's was on and all that shit. And he had Henny dragging the Henny. I was like, oh, my son is lit. Because I was with him, right? And he told me he wasn't even going. This is the one story I'm gonna tell, and everything else is not admissible to court because I have an NDA. But this is one story I'm gonna tell. He wasn't even going. He told me, I can't do a rehearsal. He had a rehearsal he was due to go on tour with Lady Gaga. So he was rehearsing for that. He's like, I ain't gonna fuck with it. And, the ballhead Cobra was like, yo, what we doing? You know what I mean? We ain't going to that. I'm trying to have fun, baby. You know what I mean? Come, holler at your girl. And like I said, I got to the crib. By the time I got to the crib, I turned this shit on. I still watched it. I was like, wait, this nigga's on the red carpet with Hennessy and Gabe and Amber. What the fuck are you doing? You doing what you're doing. Hey, good pussy had you doing some shit.
Right.
So, good pussy had him doing some shit. And as a result, the consequences of that, and this is the reason why I tell the story, is because then when Whatever You Want is going for ads, it's, now all of a sudden it's not researching well.
Yeah, shadow banned, I guess, is a great term. Like
So it's shadow banned.
It's shadow banned because of Kanye's actions, which
Correct.
we see, multiple times throughout his career.
Correct.
You leave good music. You put out movies on demand too, which had Q-Tip.
One first,
right? And then two comes out. 2 has Q-Tip, Phife, Kendrick Lamar, Mac Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So you got some big firepower on this project.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was around that time you accused Pusha T of stealing some of your lines. There was some back and forth over that.
We had a back and forth. That was the first. That was the first rodeo.
Yep. And I think around that time you were beefing with Q-Tip as well. So there was.
It was a lot going. It was a lot happening.
A lot happening.
It was a lot of moving parts happening, and like I said, I didn't get any records for Cons TV, and maybe not even a year later, ironically, Q-Tip was a good music artist and saying that there was going to be a Cruel Winter, which never came out. And that was the shadiest shit ever. It was. I mean, I resolved with it, and he and I have resolved it with it, but it was shady as fuck. And from the person who said rule number 4080, record company people are shady, and you did that to your cousin? Your cousin? Nigga who did anything for you. And you knew I was having a baby at the time. This is when Kaden was being born. I was furious, yo. I was furious. I was more mad about that than the project with the Uma not coming out. Because the thing is, like, this is my block. This is my block. It's my block. I put in the work for this block to be a block. It wasn't a block when I got here. We just spent at least a half an hour. Right, I'm gonna get a ticket and everything. We just spent a half an hour at least just on the specifics of this being my block. And not because I'm saying it's my block, because of the little work that I put in to develop and help it become something. And even to this day, we're gonna get to that, I'm sure, but that's why you see me take the positioning that I take. And I'm a person who can forgive, but I will acknowledge what has occurred. I'm not the secret keeper, and I'm not sweeping nothing under the rug. Those are the two things that I'm not doing as a grown man. I'm not secret keeping if I don't want to, and I'm not sweeping anything under the rug unless it's at the cost of someone's outright dignity. But things that have occurred, I have a right to express my displeasure or discomfort or concern about.
Well, you and Kanye work out your differences. You and Q-Tip work out your differences. Right. And I guess by 2015, you and Pusha T work out your differences because Kanye is getting ready to do Life of Pablo, and you guys work on that.
All correct. All correct.
Right. Now, 2016, Kanye puts out Life of Pablo, and you worked on which songs on that?
I'm trying to think. I worked on everything. I don't know if I actually placed. I think we were just reconnecting, but I wrote a verse to Fade, but it was a different version. I wrote a verse to Feedback. I wrote a verse to Famous. And I actually, and there was another record with Kendrick Lamar that had occurred that never came out. But those three I worked on. And, but that was more of a reconnect. Because, I mean, the time period of me leaving, it got nasty. Yeah. And I actually, in that time period is when I got the number one record with Beyonce for Party. But it was, and once again, it's like the same thing with Stressed Out. It was like, that was the situation also where it was like, I didn't really get to celebrate and be celebrated the way that I should have been. Because the drama superseded the fact that a motherfucker from Tribe gave Beyonce, was part of Beyonce getting a number one single at radio. Nobody else in Tribe has that. I didn't even get a rally from them niggas, like, to be honest with you. Like, I'm sorry. Q-Tip definitely congratulated me. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, because I'm not here to lie on nobody, and I don't have any venom, so I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. But Q-Tip definitely, actually, when we squashed it, come to think of it, he did. For that, we went out to dinner. He took me out to dinner and was like, "Yo, congratulations! I'm proud of you for that shit. I want to squash this shit."
Dope. Well, because that next year in 2016, like I said, Life of Pablo comes out, but then Phife Dawg ends up dying on March 22nd.
Right.
At the time, were you guys already working on that final album together, or was it just random songs?
I'm telling you, like I said, I went to dinner. I went to dinner with him for the Beyonce thing, and then he and I did do 2 records. We did one that was on my a Good Comeback Story EP called No Matter What. It was like one of the first records that got added to like Spotify playlists. It was on the Most Necessary playlist. It was a dope record. That's how I even met Chuck D, is because of that record. But I wasn't, when they did the Tribe, I actually, when they were at the beginning of Thank You for Your Service, we got it from here, Thank You for Your Service, it was them 4 getting back together. And Jerobi was gonna rhyme for the first time. So, and I felt like they should have. I didn't really want to be, that wasn't even something I was like, I definitely didn't ask. This time I was like, yeah, it's the last one, but it's always been like a kind of a thing with the membership shit. And I'm not gonna do that this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have been through too much shit. You know what I mean? So, so when they were doing it, and then, but Q-Tip and I was speaking, and he actually had called me and told me Phife wasn't doing well at all. And he called me one night, 3 a.m. with that.
Yeah.
And it was like, yo, I just think he just was like, he knew it, and whatever the information was, he had it, and he knew it was coming, and he was like, yo, this shit is coming. And it was fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was definitely sad. And what was interesting was right before he passed, we were gonna do an interview with him, but he didn't want to talk about anything Tribe Called Quest related. And I was just like,
which is a hard interview for you, right?
Yeah, it was like, well, what am I going to talk about? And I remember I actually even pulled in Maceo from De La Soul to try to kind of figure out, if there was a way that we could still do it.
I mean, you got to understand.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, you got to understand, like, as an outlet. It's funny too, because I remember you hit me about Ali not being on the last album. And I couldn't hit you back about that because it's just, with the group, it's really sensitive. There's a lot of sensitivity and underlying issues that,
right.
If voiced, look, I'm always pro preservation of the brand. You know what I mean? But, human beings are human beings. And there's a lot of, there's things there. There are things there. Some have come out in the documentary. And some things are there that are, for others hard to articulate. And I think, if you don't have articulation as a weapon in your arsenal, then you can do more harm than good, even to yourself, and that's just real.
Yeah. Well, that album comes out. We got it from here. Thank You for Your Service. Guest appearances from Andre 3000, Kendrick Lamar, Jack White, Elton John, Kanye, Anderson .Paak, Talib Kweli, Busta Rhymes, and yourself. And you're on the songs Whatever Will Be, Mobius with Busta, Black Spasmodic, and The Killing Season with Kanye and Talib.
Right.
And I remember you guys performed on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
And I remember me and Dave Chappelle were like texting each other around that time. And it was like, oh, Dave Chappelle's coming back to Saturday Night Live and is it almost looked like the reboot of the Chappelle Show.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I hit him about that. I'm like, oh, yo, are you bringing back the show? He's like, nah, I just, I was so excited about the Tribe Called Quest thing that I agreed to host SNL just to be part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
epic moment.
He definitely helped with the rollout of the album. Yeah, it was a real moment. It was a real moment for all of us. I think.
Yep. And then that next year, you guys performed at the Grammys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, in 2018, Kanye drops the Ye album. You wrote on I Thought About Killing You, Yikes, and Ghost Town?
And All Mine.
All Mine.
Yeah.
I guess you're the one that came up with the Stormy Daniels line on All Mine?
Yes.
Yep. Shout out to Stormy Daniels. I did an interview with
shout
her
out
not
to
too long
Stormy
ago.
and the Tristan Thompson line. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
2019, Kanye drops Jesus is King. You wrote on Selah?
Yeah. And I oversaw the mixing for the entire album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that next year, 2020, you actually publicly announced that you're dealing with lupus.
Right. During the pandemic.
During the pandemic, exactly. And you had already seen, lupus and diabetes as well?
Correct.
And you had talked about, you saw J Dilla and Phife pass away from these things. So obviously this hits you very closely.
Which is a spooky level. You know what I mean? Because, maybe one of the two guys next to me during beach rounds, two of the guys next to me during beach rounds in life, who, for all intents and purposes, I thought moving forward probably would outlive me just due to resource and other things, had passed away. And so that it's spooky, but it's obviously rest in peace to them, and God has spared my life numerous times and blessed my life, and getting out of the pandemic alive with that diagnosis, because even with the diagnosis, I actually never caught COVID during 2020's time span of the pandemic, which probably would have killed me. Because it was probably like one dial away from death, because with those are two autoimmune diseases. So if I catch COVID and that's undiagnosed, then, and I had already dropped to 102 pounds, then...
Damn. How much do you weigh right now, just as a comparison?
156.
Damn. So you're 50 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. I literally was taking showers and looking at my body and crying like, yo, what the, everything is gone. Because when I was touring with Tribe, which was 2017, I was probably at my most thick, muscular, right? I've never been like a fat guy, but I was like, I was probably like 165, 70. So I probably was overweight too. But it was still, I was working out every day, you know what I'm saying? So I felt good. But internally, I fed myself things that made the engine cease. What I was feeding myself was the wrong gasoline. And it just came to a fork in the road with my body. And I didn't realize it. I didn't get the 40-year-old check and the colonoscopy that you're supposed to get. And so things started occurring instead of me being out in front of them. So the first thing was diabetes. I was diagnosed diabetes type 2, which I found odd because my mom wasn't diabetic. My grandfather did die, wound up getting dialysis. So obviously he more than likely was diabetic, undiagnosed though. And so by the time we get to 2020 and I'm dealing with extreme levels of fatigue and soreness that I can't put a finger on. I just don't feel good at all. And I wound up getting a spinal tap and they discovered I had lupus. And then as a result of me taking prednisone, my sugar spiked to 600, which took me from type 2 to type 1 because my pancreas stopped working effectively. And, if I didn't take, the doctor told me if I opted not to take insulin, I was opting to die. And I told him, I was like, I have a son and I can't do that. So you might as well just go ahead and hit me with whatever the fuck you need to hit me with right now. We don't need to wait till later. You know what I mean? And I did that. And then I slowly, I began to go to the doctor. I hadn't been going to the doctor at all. And I advise people, especially adults 40 and above, to look at your body the way that you would look at a car. In this day and age, would you drive a car unserviced for 40 years?
Right.
Right? If you look, we don't keep cars, no matter who the manufacturer is, that we drive every day. We don't keep cars that we drive every day for more than 39 months. That's most leases, right? By the time you're done with that car, you ready to get the fuck about that shit anyway, right? So that's something man-made, mechanic, like brand new part. We go through the wear and tear of French fries, the wear and tear of soda if that's what you're on. Definitely the wear and tear of juice, the wear and tear of burgers, the wear and tear of bread in various ways. When I stopped eating bread, my life changed immediately. Bread, if I knew what I knew about bread now, the only bread I would get is the bread that I put in my pocket. Because bread is a motherfucker. Bread, single-handed. Listen, taste has single-handedly taken more lives in the Black community probably than overall, probably than I would dare to say even drugs. Because being addicted to taste is the leading cause of every internal disease.
Well, you're looking good now.
I mean,
and you look healthy now.
I mean,
that's the important part.
I came back for you. You know what I mean? I came back and I didn't come to play.
Good. I'm happy. Well, in 2021, Kanye drops Donda, and you wrote on Hurricane, featuring The Weeknd and Lil Baby. Monster record on that album.
Yeah.
And what are the records did you write on?
Junior. I have 6 writing credits on there. I don't remember off the top of the head, but I have 6 writing credits on there.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. Around that time, Drake was taking subliminal shots at Kanye. I remember you made a comment like, I don't do subs.
Right.
And I think you actually wrote a Drake diss record around that time, put it out.
6
Something like that.
Something like that. I mean,
something like that.
I mean, listen, we all got a position to play in the family.
Right.
And I play my position in the family. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't personal. I said on another interview, I actually had been to Drake's crib and Drake had a chef cook for me and the food was delicious. And and him and 40 had showed me love and respect for when I visit them. And, you know, it just came down to my bro had a conversation with me. And I'm never going to leave Kanye by himself. Like, you know, he and I may have our differences. We may not always agree. And that's okay, you know, and that's part of a healthy relationship. I don't think I just, for the record, for the internet, I'm not a yes man. And because I choose to agree or defend, that's out of love and not out of insecurity about a job. I've walked away from everything that you said that had millions attached to it when I felt any sort of compromise. I walked away.
Well, didn't you say, like, when you were at Drake's house that Drake and Kanye were supposed to do a joint album together, which ended up never happening, of course?
Yeah, they were. And that was, in my opinion, that's something that should have happened. And I think that other people see the thing, everybody has a different position. There's multiple viewpoints in the positions. My position is this. At the end of the day, if Kanye and I have a conversation, and we've had conversations since the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So we had a conversation, and that's how we got to the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Our conversations are figure it out conversations, right? So if I have a conversation with him and we go to Drake crib, this is because this is the play, right? But that play has a domino effect. If they do this, then other people may not be able to do something. And it's no different than politics. It's like, well, I'm not gonna lobby for something that potentially would mean my door's closing, right? So I'm gonna speak up and I'm gonna say why you shouldn't do that, right? And the thing about me is that my doors aren't gonna close. Because they're not. Because I'm constant of motherfucking Quince. You dig? So I don't worry about those things. Those things don't bother me at night. Nobody bothers me at night. I don't sit here and think like, damn, homie got my spot. Nobody has my spot. I don't know too many motherfuckers that could go through what I went through and still bust it up. You know what I mean? So, but everybody's position is different. Some people can't come back from certain things, and so they never want to even play around like that. And that's fair. And that's more than fair. But so to answer your question, though, that's some of the reasoning behind why we never even got that.
Right. Well, 2022, a few months ago, back in October, Kanye's on top of the world. You know, the Adidas deal is massive. Donda was a huge hit. He's got deals with Balenciaga. He's got the deal with the Gap, which is very full circle because he used to work at the Gap.
Right.
You know, in retail when he was a kid.
Right.
And then first the White Lives Matter shirts come out.
Right.
Then the DEFCON 3 on Jews.
Right.
And then the I Love Hitler and the Jews should get over the Holocaust. And then you see the domino effect of, you know, Adidas drops them, Gap drops them, Balenciaga drops them, even the stem player, you know, people drop them. And you're watching all this happen, and this is your man who, you know, you guys have a long history with, you know, who changed your life in many ways, and you guys have a friendship and a working relationship. As this is all happening and you're seeing all these things fall and, you know, so forth, are you and Kanye talking as he's doing all this stuff?
Some of this is NDA. You know, some of this is not admissible in the court of law. And but I will say that as it's happening in real time, I mean, first and foremost, this is my guy, right? And I always want to see him. I always want to see him be him. And when I say that, that means the happy person that I know, the person excited about life, the person tapped into what's made him to the world. With the understanding that he's also in the seat of abundance. And being in the seat of abundance comes with heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Being in the seat of abundance comes with scrutiny. The seat of abundance is literally located on Scrutiny Boulevard.
True.
Literally, the seat of abundance is literally located on Scrutiny Boulevard. And so I will say that when compounded with a lot of the things that he's dealing with, you know, every person gets to a point where, you know, they need to release. And if you are dealing with things that people don't know, and there's no full explanation, then obviously things are left to interpretive context. And so in a lot of the instances where things are on the internet, that's my take on it. You know, and obviously people are going to interpret to their level. And when you're in the seat of abundance, and when you're in the seat of abundance on Scrutiny Boulevard, you are subject to the court of public opinion. When you are a have, and it's publicly known, you have to understand that your words do have power. They do. And hopefully what comes about of all of this at some point is a better understanding for everyone of what we've just witnessed as far as history is concerned. Because everybody has their point of view of what happened. You know, obviously, Kanye has his point of view. The Jewish community has their point of view. The industry has their point of view. The streets have their point of view. The Kardashians have their point of view. Consequence and his family has their point of view. And it's Kanye life, though. And ultimately, it's for him to decide what he wants to say or not say. And as his friend, all I could do is be that. As his brother, all I could do is be that. You know what I mean? We can have our conversations, but I'm not going to run on my brother. I'm not going to do that. I wasn't raised, that's my principle. I'm not going to run on my brother when they get themselves in trouble. I can't sit here and do that when that's like putting the devil before the deeds. I can't sit here and have all these great deeds had occurred and the devil ones weigh the scale more than the mercy. God is the most merciful. And if I submit to God, then I need to exercise mercy. Even then when I don't agree, like, all right, I understand. Let's talk. Let's have more understanding. Let me not cast judgment. Let me not put you on the cross. He's Christian. Let me not put you on the cross. Right? Because maybe there's more to this than what I understand at this point. And without dialogue, then that's what we're going to just do to each other. We just going to all put each other on the cross.
Well, Pusha T, who was president of Good Music, and also, I mean, you could say that Kanye definitely revived his career. When the Clips broke up.
You said that.
I said that.
Okay, cool.
And I'll say it to him.
All right. Well,
I was interviewing Pusha and Malice when they were the Clips.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm still. Vlad TV goes back into the DVD era before Vlad TV.
Right.
So,
right. No.
I
know you have. What I'm saying is,
yeah,
I'm saying that based on interpretation of slander.
Well, I'm just laying out the whole story,
right?
Because the story is the story. The Clips broke up. Clips had a great run. The Clips broke up, and Malice turned Christian, and Pusha T was sort of floating around. Kanye ended up, fucking with him, and Pusha's career went up ever since.
Right. And
now,
to add some detail, let me add some detail to what you just said, just so.
Go ahead.
Just because I'm really into a full account. Like you said, it's that Kanye had actually did a feature for the Clips when they had their own label, the Re-Up Gang, right? They signed to Sony after I left, right? After Good Music had left, Al Branch and company went over, hip hop since 1978, took over Columbia and signed the Clips in the Re-Up Gang. So kind of like a Big Deal with the single, right? They actually asked me to direct the video. Whatever, it didn't wind up happening. I wrote a treatment for it. The record was the record, right? I mean, it wasn't bad. It's just not more. It's not one of the significant Clips records, right? So eventually, that deal gets wrapped up. So essentially, I think Pusha T didn't have a deal for a second, and the irony as things play out, we're just gonna leave this here for a second. We're gonna do this here, and this is gonna continue, obviously. But what happened was Rick Ross was in Hawaii.
Yeah, I know the story.
No. I need the viewers to know the story for what I'm doing, right? So Rick Ross was in Hawaii. Rick Ross is on Bloodstained 2, ladies and gentlemen, with A. Marie. So understand, when this come out, I need everybody to put the pieces of the puzzle together before anything else happens. Rick Ross told Pusha T, hey, Kanye down here working on something, and it sounds amazing, and you need to come down here. That's the story I was told. That connected. Pusha T and Stephen Victor came to Hawaii. Pusha T got to Hawaii and didn't leave. When he was in Virginia when he got the call. Right? So, and trust me, this is gonna be so much fun for you, because you're gonna be able to say, I started this whole shit. All right, so look, so with that being said, when you say revive, and I say no slander, except I really want to make it about the facts, right? So if you're saying that, right? So you're saying that Rick Ross threw the alley-oop, Kanye had him come out, Stephen Victor is a publicist at the time, right? Camps out, won't even go home, right? And eventually, and to their credit, right? That's what a hustler should do. If I ain't got nothing, and I see I'm at the seat of abundance, it's all right here. I could fix everything right here. Everything is here. No IDs here. The whole industry's flying down here. Nicki Minaj done came down here. Everybody, Q-Tip is down here. Everybody's down here, right? This is where it's at, right? We hit the jackpot. This is it, right? So, which eventually lands Pusha T on Runaway, which eventually puts Pusha T in a spotlight maybe he had only had with the Clips when they did the Justin Timberlake feature, right? Mm-hmm. Pusha T's not really known for having his own crossover pop records, right?
Right.
It's fair to say, right? It's fair to say.
Yeah,
that's not slanderous. Makes dope records, but not radio records, not MTV level records, right? So, so him doing Runaway, coming out on Runaway at the MTV VMAs when Kanye's comeback is a win for both of them, right? So, with that in context and that being the root of the relationship, I would think, because now everybody's not me, but in my book, same scenario where it's like, yo, I don't agree with everything he say. He say some, I'm talking about Kanye. I don't agree with everything that he says. And I don't agree sometimes with the position he takes with me, right? But I can say that he hasn't often asked or needed my help. When he got into the situation that you spoke of, he needed everybody's help. He didn't really need everybody's judgment from his internal. I'm not fucking with that, or I do this and yo, homie, this shit ain't even about you. Just like it wasn't about me. I could have, if anybody, I got into it with him first before anybody, right? I'm the first to do a lot of shit. Me and him got into it at the same time he put Pusha T on. I wasn't on Runaway. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was a selfish bastard, I could have just been like, yo, nigga, there's no Runaway without consequence, because there's no rapping at a certain level without me. I should get every first look first. Maybe I should have been like that. You know what I'm saying? But because I wasn't in it for that. I was in it to change my life. And if my life was moving in the right way, I didn't feel the need to be greedy or selfish. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes greedy and selfish work to your benefit, and sometimes greedy and selfish really expose who you are. You understand? And I think in instances now, we're starting to see who people really are. You know, one thing about the last few months, can't nobody question my character.
Well, Pusha T publicly said that he doesn't agree with the things that Kanye said. He's no longer the president of good music. And, you know,
but where is good music? Where is good music? Where's the president's office for good music at?
Yeah, I don't know. Good music has always been sort of I don't know. I mean, it's been a label, but I've always.
But why you?
I've never really looked at it as a label. I've just looked at it as
no.
Like,
At
hey,
one point,
Kanye.
no. At one point, there was an office for good music. There was an office for good music.
All right,
In Def Jam, and the thing is just like, my thing is like, yo, I say it again. Now, when I said on the previous interview, I was disgusted. Right. In hindsight, right?
You said you were disgusted with Pusha T's stance on Kanye.
Right. I was disgusted, and let me clarify just in case there's any gray area. I was disgusted with the fact that he would go out and say, if you don't agree with him, that's cool. Right? He made it a point to go to the LA Times, use that stance as publicity after the Grammys the nominations were announced. And then further went to say that he was resigning as president. I'm going to tell everybody on this camera, right? What presidency? It was already done a while ago. Kanye hadn't been dealing with any artist as far as being on good music for at least since the pandemic, right? The last time anybody came out was Wyoming. The last person to come out was Tiana Taylor.
Right, Tiana Taylor. I think the Nas album came out.
And it was the Wyoming run. So let's I just want to be honest. America, I want to be honest in the courtroom. I'm in Vlad's courtroom, and I want to have a moment of clarity, right? In front of the jury. Right.
Sure. And listen, and I'll be honest with you too, because I've spoken about this publicly as well. I'm Jewish myself. Those comments bothered me. My grandfather lost 10 siblings to Nazis. I could have had a much bigger family if it wasn't for the Nazis.
Right.
So hearing, Kanye say, I love Hitler, Jews should get over the Holocaust, that type of thing, that bothered me, and that hurt me.
Let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever, not to say that you should, right? That's understandable. We are all human beings, right? But if we're going to have a conversation, let's have a real conversation for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever asked in complete calm, why would a man who is on the Forbes list actually say that with the understanding, right? Not a notion, the understanding of the consequences of such dialogue. Has anybody thought to say why? Listen, you know. Listen, we're talking about one of the greatest minds in modern art, not just music. In modern art, a man who could sit here and figure out how to go from Nike, Louis Vuitton to his own fucking sneaker. He's not a special ed student.
Yeah.
Right? But we never got to why. You know what we got? You know what we got? I resigned from good music. That's what we got. We didn't get why. We never got why. It's not for me to tell the camera why, right? This is Kanye West life. I'm his man. All I said for me is that, that's my man. I ain't running on him, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever he wanted to disclose or not, that's at his discretion. That's not my business to tell. Understand? Yeah. Like at all. But I will say, as a person, for something that was in the public, listen, I have intelligence. From the outside looking in, for every person, right? Why? Just ask yourself why. Just ask yourself why.
Well, I mean, me being who I am and the relationships that I have, I've always had a good understanding why. And from people that I know that I'm close to that have also known Kanye for a very long time, decades.
Okay.
They've told me flat out that Kanye is bipolar and he doesn't get on his medication at times. And this is what ultimately happens.
So once again. So we're gonna, if we want to assess this as bipolar, mm-hmm. so be it. If that's someone's answer, what can I do? I have to accept it, right? Right? But also, like I said, one of the greatest minds of all time. Not because that's my friend, not because I'm a yes man, based on the accomplishment of what that mind has done.
Right. No, the work speaks for itself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let me tell you, at one point, after all this happened, after all this shit happened, and he was running around with Nick Fuentes and doing, all these various interviews, they came to us and said Kanye wants to do an interview with Vlad TV. And I was very conflicted about this interview. And I remember me and Beanie Siegel just did an interview and we talked about this. My thing was like, okay, you know something? I am going to accept this interview request. And when I do sit down with Kanye, what I'm going to say is, I don't want to talk about all this shit that happened in the last few months. I want to actually talk about the accomplishments and the music and what you've actually accomplished. And I want to steer away from all this bullshit because ultimately, when we're all gone, no one's going to care about this stuff. The music is what's going to live on. You know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to actually focus on. Now, was Kanye actually going to allow me to actually do that, knowing the way Kanye is? Who knows? That was your outlook. That was your game plan for if it was the land. That was my game plan. And ultimately, he ended up doing the interview with the Proud Boys guy, and then he ended up canceling all the interviews afterwards. So it ultimately never happened. But if I were to sit down with Kanye, I'm not going to sit there and argue with him about Hitler and Jews and everything else like that, because that's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like all I'm saying is, at least through asking questions, you can have dialogue. Not to say that not to say that it's gonna get the dialogue will get better, worse, or whatever. But if we never even have dialogue, then we're left to make assumptions, and then we cast judgment, and then we do. That's the road we go down. You know what I mean? And we have, and only thing I'm trying to, my perspective and my point is that we have to definitely understand, if we're talking about, if we accolade someone in society, we can't just now if they make a turn, there's cause and effect for everything.
Right. You know, like for example, you know, the Scott Adams thing. Me and Scott did an interview a few years ago. I went to his home. We kept in contact. I was a huge fan of Dilbert. And when he went, you know, jumped out the window and said that I bought a house because there was no black people in my neighborhood and whites need to get the hell away from blacks and black people are a hate group, I called him up and I'm like, yo, like, this is very, very hurtful. A black woman that was very close to me was in tears when she saw that. I'm explaining to him like, yo, this is really hurtful. And this is really like, I don't understand. I don't know if you understand the implications of this. Right. And his response was like, you're being fucking racist to me. Don't ever call me again. So I had to publicly come forward and say, I don't fuck with Scott Adams. You're not going to see him on Vlad TV. I don't agree with his, you know, with his mentality, but I tried to talk to him first. And this was before all the newspapers canceled him and he lost his book deals and everything else like that. I tried to actually reason with him. And had he listened to me, he could have potentially avoided where we are right now. But it is what it is. Ultimately, me and Kanye have never talked. You know, Kanye saying he loves Hitler. Kanye may not realize that Hitler was sterilizing all the mixed children in Germany because they're going to muddle the race. And he has mixed children. Right. So to me, loving Hitler is crazy for someone to say that who has mixed children. You see what I'm saying? Right. But does Kanye know that? Does Kanye have people in the circle who are explaining this to him? I don't know, because I interviewed Kanye back in like 2004, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and he was, and I'm gonna go out on a limb a little bit and say, even when he explained his perspective, what he was saying was that he said out of his own mouth, I don't want to hate anyone. I don't even want to hate Hitler. I want to see the good that I feel like even a Hitler could have as a human being. That's me transcribing what was said, right? So all I'm saying is his point may fall on deaf ears because of the devil versus the deeds with Hitler, right? I said that before, when some people, devil does outweigh their deeds, right? We talking about scales. And that conversation, in that reference, Kanye was looking at the scales in his POV. People are not going to agree with it because popular opinion is that the devil outweighs the deeds when it comes to Hitler. So, and if a person is going the opposite way of popular opinion, he's been trying to say that the programming of what we're perceived to have as notions should be able to be at least challengeable. And in succession of what was occurring, maybe it spiraled into that. But I know for one, that's his notion as an intellect. His intellect tells him that, do we automatically subscribe to public opinion? Being a person who went through the Taylor Swift debacle, being a person who went through very public instances of being judged in the court of public opinion, I'm sure that people can understand why he may be a person who feels like they want to move opposite of that. And and Kanye has always been a person to go to lengths to make his notion become thought, right? So at the end of the day, if we listen to everything, there's things in all of it that should be noted, right? Overall, if the conclusion is drawn to where it's drawn, that's left to everyone's intellect. We are all entitled to our own individual intellect in America. We all have the right to say, hey, This is this is that, right? Including him. He's not bound, he's not chained to his celebrity to the point, and that's, to me, if you really look at it from an intellectual standpoint, even with his stance with the paparazzi, he does not want to be chained to fame. He doesn't. He's actually done everything he can to be unchained from fame. And that's why I said why. If you look at the why and you take time to see it, although it's brutal. The hell, it's brutal. I'm his man. To watch all of it is brutal, right? But do we know what he goes through? As a person feeling like they chained to fame, that might be brutal for him. And that's all I'm saying.
Well, that's what it is. And, as you being his friend, I respect your stance on it. I've had, my own, controversial comments, and there's people in my life who disagreed with my comments, but they also said, you being my friend, I'm never going to publicly bash you over this. I may not do some Vlad TV. I may not do any more Vlad TV interviews, but you're still my friend, and I'm never going to make your situation worse than what it is.
Right,
We're still going to continue our
my
friendship.
only take, and that's my take.
Yeah. That's my take when it came to Pusha. I respect your stance on this.
And that's my take when it came to Pusha. I thought it's my understanding that, like I said, and I've tried to explain it, like, yo, I thought we would stick together. We came this far. We went through the Donda. We been through a lot. We've been through a lot with Pusha. And the thing is just like, at the end of the day, maybe it's my expectation. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't profess to know him that well, but I definitely thought that I just thought the timing was awful. I thought the timing was awful with everything. And I'm stand on that.
Before I let you go, you have a new song out, Bloodstained 2, with Rick Ross, A. Marie, and Kid Capri.
Yes.
Is there a new project that this is leading into?
Absolutely. So what we have out right now is we have the Disappointed video, which is not a diss record. It's just a real record. It's how I feel about what has transpired with my colleagues and my former label mates. And we got Bloodstained 2 out, featuring Rick Ross, and the latest feature from A. Marie. This is the first record she's done in a minute, and she's killed that shit. And we got a guest appearance by the legendary Kid Capri, and produced by Kanye West, produced by Ye, and it's inclusive of my new album, Nice Doing Business With You, which will be out late April.
That's what it is. Consequence, man. Me and you go back.
Yeah.
We've had our various ups and downs over the years, but I think ultimately there's a level of respect that has been maintained.
Yeah.
All along.
Yeah, and, I would like to come back, man. I would like to figure out how to get a Boosie check, bro. What's good? Nah.
Boosie saying that he charges $40,000 for a podcast has sent some very interesting texts,
right,
into my phone.
Right. I knew you before that nigga, man. I can't get up. Like, look, man, I see how you flip. But once again, I agree with the sentiment.
Phone calls after that video has come out. Shout out to Boosie, that's my man.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Whatever. I'm just gonna say that whatever me and Boosie have worked out financially, it's not the number that he's thrown out there, but definitely me and Boosie have a financial relationship. I'm a wide receiver, and it's worked out great for the both of us.
I'm a wide receiver. I can catch. You could throw a number my way, just for future reference. I'm doing good, and I can always do better.
That's what I'm talking about.
I remember you from Frisco when I met you. Listen, Vlad Montana, all you got to do is call a down package. Call a down package, and you're right. And Jerry Rice is in the end zone, all right?
Yep, toss it your way, man. Listen, man. Number one, congratulations. Most importantly, on your health.
Thank
you. I said, when you told me you weighed 103 pounds, like my jaw dropped. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah.
That's like, you were 2/3 of your current body weight, which is insane.
Right.
So the fact that you've turned your life around health-wise,
right,
is extremely impressive, because a lot of people, I remember even watching something with Phife where he was just saying, I'm just addicted to soda. I'm just addicted to I just can't stop.
Yeah.
And ultimately, even with the
kidney
transplant.
Though. You have to, I I mean, I understand. Like I said, that we went through the whole taste addiction scenario, but I just had 2 months to live for. My son was 11. I mean, he's 11 now, and he was maybe 9. 10, not even 8. He was 8, turning 9, and I just had, he's obviously in the totem pole. I mean, first and foremost, my life is blessed, and I've never been suicidal. I've never wanted to quit. I've always taken life as a blessing, and that was, so I didn't want to, so even that probably was my darkest hour. And I thank God for the will to fight. I thank Allah for the will to want to live. And I thank Allah for my son inspiring me and coming into my life when he did. And and he really was the catalyst as far as anyone to be inspired. He had his whole life ahead of him, and I just thought that every day, like, what is his life gonna be without his daddy? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I just didn't want to have that. I honestly came to had peace with it, but I said, if I can fight, I will. And literally I started just taking 2-pound weights and curling. And then I would get up, pray, and then I would go to the park, and I would meagerly walk to the park and do 1 pull-up and go in the crib. And the next day, 2 pull-ups. And they hit every doctor's appointment. And then 2 pull-ups turned into 5, and eventually I got back to a clip, and eventually I went to a nutrition and started understanding what food does and doesn't do, and I saw change.
That's great, man, because you're mature enough to realize that there's something bigger than just you. You're not just living for yourself, you're living for a higher purpose, which is your family.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I applaud you for realizing that and taking those steps to be where you are today, man. Like I said, me and you go very far back.
Right.
And happy to see you healthy,
right.
Successful,
likewise,
sticking to your principles. Still the same consequence that I met way back when.
Right.
Not same person. You know what I mean?
Right.
And wish you all the best, man. Until next time.
Definitely. Salute.